First, let's create an HTML form, and method of this form is get, and inside the form we will create our inputs. First of all, we have to write the label tag, and our first type of input is input type color. In this input type, we will allow user to pick any color of their choice. This is input type color, name color, ID is color, and initial value. It may be any hexadecimal value, 6-digit value. You can give any initial value, and at the end the submit button. Here is the output. User can select any color. Let's add a little bit of styling so that our output may look clean and beautiful. Let's first of all justify content center. We just want to display all the input field at the center of the body or at the center of the screen. So width of all the input type should be 300 pixels. You can set the width according to your choice. So align item center, text align center. So this will center all of the content. Here is the output. User can select any color of their choices, and here is also paste any default color value to change the color of the input. So next, write the next input type. Our next input type is date. We are asking the user to write his date of birth. The for is date. Let's change all the attribute according to the input type date. Here is the output. User can select any date, any year according to their choices. Here user can select his date of birth. Next, move to the next input type. Next input type is time. Name is time. ID is time. We are asking the user to enter the time. This input will allow us to select the any time in the 12-hour format. Here we can select minute and also can select AM or PM. Next, move to the next type of input in HTML5. Here is the other input. You can combine both inputs, time and date, in the single input. If you can write time, date time, local, so this will combine the both inputs, date and time, at the same field. So here is the next type of input is month. This input will allow the user to select the month and the year. what is your birth month and year. In this input we can select the month and any year. We can select any year with month. So next input type is week. HTML5 will also allow user to select week of in any year. Here is the input type is week. We can ask user pick any week in the year. In this input type, user can select the whole week in any year. Here we can select a week, month and year. Next type of input in HTML5. Our next type is input type email, label for email, and what is your email address. Name is email and ID is email. In this type, user can type input and submit form. Here we can also write the required attribute. This attribute will ensure that user will have to write email to submit the form. This form will not submit until the user will type input. We can also allow for the multiple emails. User can type multiple email address separated with commas, and we can submit these multiple inputs here. Let's move. The next type of input is input type number. Name is number, ID is number. Here we can ask user type your age. What is your age? The label for is number. Here user can enter any number. This input will only allow to enter number. We can also set the minimum and maximum range of the number. Here minimum range is 10, maximum is 20. This input will only allow enter the number between 10 and 20. We can also set the step of the number. This number will be entered in the step of 2. Here the number will increase or decrease by the step of 2. Is 10, 12, 15. You can also set the step attribute according to your own choice. Here the next input type is URL. Name is website. You can write any name here. ID is website. What is your website? And the label for URL. Here is a placeholder. In this input field, user will only enter the URL or link of the website in the proper format. So input URL will be in the proper format as the link of the website. Here this link is acceptable. Next move further. Next the input type is tell. HTML5 will also allow user to enter mobile number with a specific input type is tell. In this input, user can enter the mobile number in a specific format. We can also set the pattern in which user will enter the mobile number. The pattern, we have to write the pattern here. First, user will enter 3 number 0 to 9, then dash, then 3 number 0 to 9, then any 4 number between 0 to 9. This is the format in which user will enter the mobile number. You can also change this format according to the requirement. This input will only accept the number with the proper format as we have set in the email input field, and this format is acceptable and this is not acceptable. We can also change the format, first 4 number, then 7 number, and no, we can input the number in this format, first 3 4 number and then after dash 7 numbers, and this format of the number is acceptable. Now let's write the next type of input. Our next type of input is input type range, label for range. What is your price range? This input will allow user to select the range of the price, and this will display a smooth slider. We can also set the minimum range is 1000 and the maximum range is 10,000 according to our own choice, and the initial value of the range may be 4000. This is our output of the range input. If we want to display the range value alongside this slider, so let's write the proper code for this. There will be some jQuery or JavaScript code to display the range value alongside this slider. So here is the JavaScript function which will display the range value. So next, place this function below the HTML code inside the static tag. This input will display the input of the range. So here we have to copy this line and paste this line below the range input, and this is the on change. This function will call when user will change any input in the slider. This function will detect any change in the range slider, then this value will be displayed below the range. Now value is showing as we change the range of the price. So we can also set the step attribute, display the range in the steps. So this will show the range in steps of 1000. Or let's start creating an HTML form tag, and inside the form tag we are going to create our input fields which will be included in our form. First of all, we have to write the label tag. Label tag is used to describe the input field. First input is enter first name. The type of this input is text and name of the input is first name. Placeholder is first name. Placeholder is just a faded text which will be displayed inside the input field. HR for the horizontal line to separate the each input in our form. And our second input type is input type password. Let's copy paste all the above input and let's change this enter password. Type of this input is password. This input will allow user to enter password and password will not be displayed to the user. And it's the output. This is we can enter password. Now let's move further. Our next input type is input type submit. HR for the horizontal line. Let's copy and paste the previous code and we are changing this code. This input type is submit. Name of the input is submit and value of the submit. This will create a submit button which will be used to submit the form. Our next input type is type reset. This will create a reset button in our HTML form which will be reset all of the input field which have been filled earlier. This input type is reset. Value of this input is reset. This will create a reset button in our form. So here is it. Let's type any password and press a reset button, then password will be reset. Now our next input type is type radio. Let's create label tag. What's your favorite color? This is very important input type in HTML forms. This input type will allow user to select only one input from many inputs. Input type is radio and name of the input is color. First value is red, second value is green. Let's create a third value which is black. And name of the input should be same, which is color, and value of this input will be different. This input will allow user to select only one option out of many given option. Out of multiple option, user can select only one option. Now let's move further. Next input type is checkbox. This type is very similar to radio type, but the difference is that in this input user can select more than one option. So here the name of the input will be different. In the previous input radio type, we have written the name of the input same, and in this input type, name of the input is different, which will allow user to select their favorite fruit. Type is checkbox. Input name is fruit 2. Fruit 2 is apple. Let's change third input, banana. Value of this input is banana, and name of this input is fruit 3. Name of all these input will be different because user can select multiple options in this input. As we can see here, we can select all options as we want. Next, move further. The next input is input type button. Let's write label tag. What is your name? Let's create input tag. An input tag in HTML don't have an end tag. It is only a single tag input. Type text name of the input name. Now next input type button, and value of the input is submit. This input will also create a submit button, which will be used to submit the form data to the web server. Here is our input. We can submit the name using the submit button. Next, right here we are going to write the next input type. Next type is input type file. The file input in HTML is very important, which will allow user to select and submit any file from the computer. Label for computer input is file. Select a file to upload. Input type is file. Name of the input is file. ID is file. And this ID should match to the for attribute in the label tag. ID attribute will be similar to the for attribute. User can select here only single file. If we want to select multiple files from our computer, so we have to change our input with the attribute like multiple. This multiple attribute will allow us to select multiple files from our computer. Now we can select more than one file and upload these files to our web page. Our next input type is type image. Label for image, what is your name? We can also make image a input. We can also use any image a input. When user click on this image, then data will be submitted. Let's create this image. Source of this image logo.png. This is the image name, and ID of this input is image. Now user can submit the form data by clicking on this image. Let's refresh our page. This image has been created here. We need to decrease the width of the image. Let's create a couple of line breaks to display the input in separate line. Here we have to write label for name because we are demanding the user to enter their name. Input type text, name is name, a placeholder is name. No user can enter the name in this input field. Now we can change the width of the image, less 50 pixel. Now image size will be reduced to 50 pixels. Now when user press on the image, the data will be submitted to the server. Next input type is input type search. The label tag, label for search here. Now let's write the input tag, input type search. This input type will allow user to search the information. This input type is specific to search purpose. The idea of the input is search. Now this search has been created. We can also disable the auto completion in the search. If we add the autocomplete off, then the search suggestion will not be displayed when we click inside the search.